I'm very happy with this choice, but I really just treated myself and went in on the pumpkin pie and the apple cider so much that my teeth hurt, and I think the sugar is starting to affect me. Perfect time to record a podcast episode, right? Where I have to be like, okay, focus. And I'm like, yeah, so much sugar high. I just had Twix Halloween candy and pumpkin pie and apple cider. Let's talk about the fucking things. Hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of We the Light. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. All right, friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. We're doing it. We're back. It's happening. It's all happening. I'm squatting as I'm screaming at you. But I'm excited. I think I've talked about this weeks ago, but I was had an idea of what I've been wanting to talk about for a good amount of time, but I have to be honest that the pleasure challenge in the best way possible is bringing up my shit. If you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? God bless, all Gucci gang, just rewind, my friend, and go to the podcast episode before this. And it was a quick little episode. I'll give you the cliff notes. I wanted to introduce us, invite you into a pleasure challenge and what this pleasure challenge is. And so many people have signed up and I'm so excited hearing about what's coming up for so many people. And that was inspiration for this episode. Oh my gosh, this is what's coming up or this is what's happening. But honestly, because I am a type of person, I've talked about this with you before. If you're a OG fan and you've listened to most of the episodes, I am a type of person that I'm not perfect. However, I've been in this industry and I've been in this game for a long ass time. And I've worked with different coaches and different communities, and nothing pisses me off more or gives me the creepy crawlies than someone that doesn't practice what they preach. Do you have to be perfect? Abso-fucking-lutely not. That is not the point of this. Literally, that's not the point. That's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm referring to. But when people just regurgitate shit that they learned and they don't practice what they preach, you feel it. You feel it as a client, you feel it in the community. You're like, ooh, something is sticky sauce and I don't like it. And so for me, and sometimes it's an impossible challenge because I'm very grateful. I have so many amazing clients and one is so different and we're working on different things. Yes, there usually are overlaps, but we're working on different things. And I do like sometimes to do homework with them. And that way we can keep each other accountable because it's, it doesn't feel great when you're like, okay, you could do this for home play. And it just, for me, it feels more inspiring if I'm I'm going to do this with you. So in the past, I have if someone's I'm going to move my body once a week. I'm great. That's something I'm working on now with a client. Great. I'm going to lovingly hold you accountable because I'm going to do it too. Or I'm going to do this mindset challenge. Or one of my clients has this amazing shout out to my amazing client, you know exactly who you are, has something, and I think actually we should make a podcast episode about this. I'm wait, duh, this is an amazing tool. So I'm going to go back and see if I can give this person full credit, but it's a tool that they call Espresso Martini Saturdays. And I have evolved with my clients. So you know who you are. We should talk about this because I'm let's make it into a podcast episode. But Espresso Martini Saturdays for me turned into Kombucha Sundays, or, for other people, lighting candles and, whatever Mondays. The Cliff Notes is these activities, these homeworks. For me and for most of my clients, it feels good if I do the homework with them because they know they're being held accountable. Obviously, I can't do all of them. But I try to, the big ones, the big dogs, I really like to walk the path, quite literally walk the path with them. Because no one wants fucking homework or advice regurgitated to them. Like, you actually want to be deeply held. And for me, being deeply held is doing the work together in our own iterations. And this is actually something I didn't plan on talking about, but I remember I was going through and my ADHD is kicking. I'm like, oh my God, we have to do an espresso martini episode. I'm like, wait, it's so good. I think that's next. Like, that's next week. So like literally tune in because you're going to fucking love this tool. But anyway, I'm thinking about this program that I did. And the first part of the program was very traditional. Like, I am the teacher, I speak at you. And God bless, like, it was great. I learned so much. I still implement some of the tools. But then part 2 of the program was the teacher actually like kumbaya'd and was a little bit off the pedestal. Like, they obviously were still the teacher. They obviously still held the container, held the space, but they jammed with us. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like, we're going to go into this week, but like, I have to tell you, like, this is bringing up this for me. Like, yes, I'm teaching this. Yes, I'm holding space for this, but I, in my personal life, am also going to hold myself accountable. And for me, like, that's why, one of the reasons why I love this work, because I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, I want to, like, I love this shit. This shit has changed my life. Like, I want to continue to practice it. Like, I don't want to be the person that's just like, I learned and now I'm gonna vomit back to you. It's like, ooh. So with that being said, I really jammed with that type of program or type of container where at one point, yes, they were the teacher. In the second part, they still were the teacher. They still were very much the person or the force, you know, moving forward the curriculum and what we're learning and the container, but they too were like, hey, by the way, like, the fourth wall was broken. And that's where most of the healing happened, because like, we could have real genuine conversations. We could really connect. It wasn't, now I teach you to do this and you do this. It was more collaborative. And that's how the really long answer is, or the long story short, but like actually no short, is that's how I like to collab with my clients. I don't want it to be like a crunch. I want us to collaborate. I want us to commingle and co-create with one another. So with that being said, this pleasure challenge, like, I'm not just fucking making shit up and being like, go have fun. I'm like, okay, like, you got to practice what you preach. And when I originally came up with the idea of the pleasure challenge, and again, if you're like, what is this? Go back and listen to last week's episode. If you're like, I'm not in the mood, I'm lazy, all good. The Cliff Notes is, it's a invitation to invoke more pleasure into your life. And I asked the rules, if you will, or the parameters. You could take them or you could burn them down. The parameters are, what would feel nourishing in your life right now? Like, do you want to try this challenge for 3 weeks? Do you want to try to do it for 2 months? Do you want to say, okay, I'm just going to, baby step and do this a week? Like, I want to see each person's timeline is different. So first and foremost, I wanted you to create and set a timeline that feels nourishing. Because then, like, if it's ever going, we're like, yeah. But for me, I know I'm most successful when I kind of like set a timeline and I'm like, I'm really going to commit my intention, my energy to this thing. Cool. So I know for me, like, I was like, okay, let me baby step this because I like don't want to overwhelm my nervous system and be like, I'm doing this for months. But so I'm baby stepping it, but I'm also though, like, underneath, I would like to have this as the intention for the rest of the year. And at this point, that's like 2.5-ish months, 2 months and a week, something like that. You get the point. 2 months, we'll call it that. And once we come up with a timeline, simply, we focus on pleasure and how we can add pleasure to our mundane. I gave an example of on a, what is it called? A chart. On a scale, here we are, again, pumpkin pie in full, like, I'm like, oh, my teeth are chattering because of the apple cider. So you really got me on a special day today. On a scale, on a little barometer there, I want you to consistently check in with yourself throughout the day. Okay, honey, am I feeling crunchy, contracted? Like, right now I'm actually in the middle because I'm both like, yes, alive, but like, because of the sugar, I'm a little shaky. Or am I turned on? And what turned on means is, it doesn't mean like, bum, it could, but really what it means is, I should say, I'm breathing, I'm alive, I'm tuned into my senses, like, I feel pretty good in my body, I feel expansive. Makes sense? So we want to just like check the barometer, we want to check the scale, like, and we don't make it wrong. We don't shame ourselves, but like, where am I on this scale? Am I crunchy or feeling pretty turned on? If we're crunch, if we're Lay's potato, actually if we're Ruffles, you know, little crunch action, which also, like, this is a sidebar, but like, speaking of crunch, and I think this is really why you got me on a good day. Like, I'm like, let's gossip. Let me tell you, are you an ASMR person? Because I am an ASMR person, but I'm get this, ASMR crunch. I love crunch. Like, oh! And I'm a type of person that's like very fucking weird with sounds. Like, if I hear someone like making saliva sounds, I'm like, my soul leaves my fucking body. I'm like, absolutely not. But like, I am in the most luscious spiral with crunchy sounds via ASMR. Also, like, love a crunchy snack. Like, love when they dip and the crunch, and ooh, it does something to my soul. That is like very, very private, but I'm sharing that with you today because I'm like, oh, this is an interesting endeavor. But let me tell you, I've learned this from the pleasure challenge. Like, I'm learning things about myself. But going back to the crunch, Lay's is a light crunch. We know Ruffles, that's got the ridges, so that's a big ass crunch. So if you're feeling Ruffle crunch on the side, oh, the merch, Ruffle crunch, creme de la creme, like all of the snacks is what my merch is. But if you feel a Ruffle crunch, we're not gonna make it wrong, we're not gonna make it bad, but we're like, let's just get fucking curious. Like, okay, why am I crunchy? What's going on? You know what? I feel really tired. I feel pain in my upper back. I have a little bit of anxiety thought. Cool. Like, we just want to investigate and see what's going on. We don't want to, I mean, if you can, like, yes. But like, we don't need to get to, and I always say this, we don't need to get to a 10. Like, we don't need to have you being feathered in a chaise lounge, someone feeding you grapes. Like, if we can, like, yes, I support it. Tell me all about it. I want us to just get out of that full contraction, full Lay's crunch. Or full, Ruffle crunch. Like, why is everything around snacks? Everything's about a snack. Everything's about the nosh. But does that make sense? Like, I don't need you being like, I'm feathered and I'm in complete pleasure. It's just like, how can I be with myself in this contraction, not make it wrong, and like slowly sidestep? And I have to be honest, I do this all the time. Like, I do it at parties. I even do it with clients. Like, if I'm like, ooh, I feel myself like hunched over the computer and I'm like, okay, hi. Whew, you're feeling some anxiety. So we're going to like move our shoulders back. We're going to take a nice sip of tea. We're going to put our hand on our shoulders and our neck there. Like, great. Does that make sense? So we want to like get out of the crunch. So that was one of the tools. Another option is just like asking yourself, like, how can I make this situation more pleasurable? Some situations are like naturally born more pleasurable, right? Like a party or going to an art show or something that lights you up. Like, hell yeah. Like, can we add more of those things into our daily life? Fuck yeah. But also, like, we have to deal with, like, you know the deal. Like, that's not always the stuff. Part of it is like, okay, how do I make, oh fuck, I could talk about this for an episode, like making my taxes pleasurable, because like, ooh, the anxiety that comes on, but like over the years, I have a formula, I get the snack, always the snacks, but I get the snacks, I watch a special show. Last year I binged, I think, literally an entire show, but like, I was like, great, because it made me feel better, it didn't put me into like a tailspin. And it's funny, I don't know if I told you this before, but I remember I told a friend this recently. When I first started this work, it was such a high. I was like, holy shit, like, I can take good moments. I could take like, I'm at the DMV. Like, I can take any situation or not any situation, go with me, a lot of situations and turn it on. And then scroll to the pandemic. You ignorant little lady. The universe was like, okay, you want to play? And I was like, oh, fuck. And so it really had to stretch me in different directions of what I thought pleasure was, what I thought safety was in my body, what I thought joy looked like, because it was very conditional, if that makes sense, right? Like, we talk about unconditional love and conditional love. I had a very conditional relationship to pleasure and joy and happiness. And I didn't think I did. I was like, I can do this anywhere. But I think there was still some creepy crawlies where I actually had a quite conditional relationship to pleasure. It was very, and I'm not going to make it wrong, it was fab at that time, but it was very, oh, you go out for a gorgeous dinner, or, you wear this beautiful robe, or you do this, and this, which, again, we love that. I love those moments. And sometimes those are not our conditions. And that feels really, for me, it felt really disempowering to then have those external forces disappear and me feel helpless. And so what I'm trying to empower us to do is when we have the accessibility to those things, when we have the access to those fabulous moments, grab them. You know what I mean? Like, fucking grab them. Grab them and run, enjoy them, live, laugh, love like you've never lived, laugh, love before. Yes. And we know there's so much more in the sandwich that happens throughout our life. Like, there's so much more color and texture and richness that happens. And what I want us to empower us to do is, fuck yeah, let's do it in the hot damn times, but I also want, it's about damn time, the hot damn times. But I also want us to be empowered to do it in the mundane, I just have work today, or I have to take a shower and pick my kids up from school. That's where I want us to empower us to have a relationship with pleasure, safety, joy in the body. So that's like a little recap / extension of what we talked about last week. I heard from a lot of people, and it was really exciting because for me as a coach, like I said before, like, it's super fucking collaborative, it's fun, we get to go on adventures, and also, like, one of my jobs is obviously to hold space for you, to love up on you, to celebrate you, and a part of it is to safely stretch you into where you want to grow. And that 99.9% of the time comes with objections, resistance. Like, that's part of the game. Our brain is like, fuck you, I'm doing fine, stop making me do this crazy shit, like, stop pushing me, so there's all these objections that come out. And so I'm used to objections, I'm used to resistances. That's like part of what I had to get good at. And to be honest, this is a sidebar, this is like a little VIP one-to-one moment. For me, that was such an interesting, fun edge for me to play with as a former / comes up here and there, people pleaser. Because I just wanted to be in celebration mode. I wanted to celebrate. But, like, I had to get good at being like, fuck yeah, celebrations. And I see you in your objections, and I'm going to lovingly play with that objection with you. I'm going to lovingly play with your resistance. So I had to get really good at that part of coaching, and I celebrate that over the years. It's actually my most fun part. Like, I love celebrating people. I love jamming on you, but, like, I love teasing out the resistance, teasing out the objection. I'm like, ooh, that's where there's juice. That's where there's goodness. Like, that's where there's healing and opportunity. So I love that. That is, like, such a fun part of the game for me. And with this challenge, which was, so not, like, specific or, like, just a general challenge, I heard a lot of people's resistances. And I'm like, fuck yeah, like, that's part of it. That means that something's happening. That's awesome. And I wanted to talk about my specific crunch around it. Like I said, I like to do activities. I like to do homework, home plays with my clients. And with this, I'm like, ooh, yes. And so it's actually like holding me to the fire a little bit, because I'm like, I'm going to do it. But the more I talk about it, I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, this is an opportunity for me to really, really step into this new relationship with pleasure. I've had a relationship with pleasure for years, and I've been saying this with my coaches. I think I'm being asked, what's next? Like, what's this new relationship? And so I felt myself skirting around, like, I'm just going to do this podcast episode and, like, I'll, like, do this in my private life. But I'm like, oh, like, there's a part of me that's like, no. Like, I want to, not every episode for the next 2 months. Fuck no. We have other shit to talk about. Like espresso martini Sundays or Saturdays and kombucha Sundays. But there is a part of me that I'm like, ooh, it makes my stomach flip a little bit. But, like, actually hold myself even more publicly accountable for this challenge. Because I've been speaking about it for so long, it's like, okay, then here's your opportunity. Be witnessed and held and stretch yourself in really fun ways. So, fuck, okay, fine. I'll take you up on the challenge. So I want to get into the challenge and what I felt in just a second. Before we do, I know you're probably like, wait, like if you've ever listened to this before, if you have, you know my spiel. But if you haven't, you're probably like, what do you like? What does this mean? What does this look like for you? And there's many avenues, there's many ways that I like to work with people. Obviously, you know, you're here, that's an outlet. I have many free resources like my book, like here the podcast, like the blog. And of course, I have more intimate settings like groups, like one-on-ones. And that's the shit that makes me fucking so jazzed. I'm like, yes, because when you know the deal, like when you have full attention on you, it's like, it could be intimidating, like we said. There could be resistances. There could be objections that come up. I'm overanalyzing myself because I heard myself, like we said. Oh, we're in third person now, Erica. Okay, but like I said, when there is hyper attention, it could be super fucking exciting. It could be super permission giving, but it also could be scary as fuck. And I really try to make that container feel loving and warm and safe. And so with that, I would love to invite you in to think about if there's something inside of you that keeps coming back to these fucking podcast episodes, there's more available. And before we get into that, like I want to celebrate that you are continuing on this journey of like personal development. Like you could listen to a podcast about murders and like you could also listen to a podcast about murders and this, but like the fact that you're spending time here, there's something curious within you. Like there's something that's like, oh, okay. Like there's something here. There's something I want to get. And so I just want to like celebrate that. Fuck yeah. Throw the balloons. Yes. Titty tassels ablazing. Confetti on the floor. Like yes. Like yes, 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 yes. Up and down. Yes, 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 yes. And I also feel that's a very specific type of person. And there could be more available. That doesn't mean there definitely is. It doesn't mean you have to, no. But there is a pulse that there could be more available for more holding, more expansion, more growth. With that being said, I would fucking love to hold you in a one-on-one free complimentary, yep, call. And in this call, what we do is we get a tasting of my work. We jam, we see what resonates for you, and then we see if we're a fit to match together. I never really push because we feel right away. Like we feel our energy. And if you're like, you love this work, but you're not my person, I'm like, God bless. How about this person? Or like, no problem. Like I had such a ball with you. Or if you're like, fuck yeah, we collaborate, we continue on our path to working one-on-one, longer term, usually 3-6 months, and onward. So I wanted to invite you to that because I know I've said this a lot, and really in the last year, my business has changed 400 times. And I really am so blessed, so grateful, but like my capacity to take on clients, which is such a big celebration, but my capacity to hold so many clients is starting to shrink because I celebrate. I'm getting more and more amazing like a soulmate match clients. And so my capacity to hold, because I have other things, right? I have the podcast, I do speaking. I have now so many more clients. I'm slowly starting to really be discerning and not be like, yes, I have 4,000 people. Like the energy, the direction of the business is changing. So with that being said, at this particular time, I would so fucking encourage you to take that gift. Take that gift for yourself. This is a session that's 60 minutes dedicated to you. Me hyping you up. Me genuinely finding nuggets that you can take away. Like this is a free, literally no strings attached. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. It is genuinely no strings attached. If we're a fit, I'd fucking love to work together. Duh. But like it is, I go in with no strings attached. My intention when I go in that door or that Zoom room is for us to jam, for me to hold you, for you to leave feeling inspired, jazzed, excited. So, with that being said, because everything is so ever-changing, I really want you to have access to this work. I really want you to, even not about the work, just like have someone love up on you for an hour. Give yourself that gift. So, with that being said, or like coming like the holiday season, like it's slowly approaching us, even if it's not the holiday season, if you're like, you know what, like I don't think this is for me, but I think this is someone else, tell them, sign them up for the free call, obviously with consent, ask, duh. But I really want to make sure that you, as the business changes, that you grab that free opportunity to have time all about you. The Cliff Notes, like I said, it's 60 minutes. We go all in about you. We celebrate you. We find things that you want to work on, how you want to expand in a safe, delicious way. We do the things. We jam. You're like, great, how do I get this? You get it by going to my website, www.wethelight.org. And there should be like 4,000 options of like schedule a call, book a call. Or if you're like, I'm not in the mood to that, can you just send me a direct link? Shoot me a message on Insta at wethelight_LLC. It's also in my Linktree bio, so you can just like actually schedule. Or if you're like, just send me the fucking link. Great, send. All good. But I really genuinely would love to have you. If you're like, oh, my friend, my cousin, my so-and-so would really benefit, send them my way. Like, it is truly, I fucking love this work. For me, it makes me so jazzed holding people and doing the things. So if this or someone else, it resonates for you, I'd love to have you. I'd love to have them. So, like, let's get into the resistance sauce about Erica's resistance. And I'm talking about mine because I know it really well. Like I said, other people shared their grievances, their resistance, their pushback, but because I lived it, I could give you a play-by-play. So again, I've been doing this work for years, many different capacities, many different structures. I've been playing this game for a moment. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do the pleasure challenge. I have been doing the pleasure challenge. Like, I'm going to, like, do it a little bit more. And I'm like, okay. A few days went by, and it, like, and this is normal if this happens. Like, you're like, I can't fully get into it, but it's just, like, a thought. Like, oh, remember that pleasure challenge? And you're like, yeah. And about a few days ago, so a few days since I, quote-unquote, started the challenge, and I was like, okay, today's going to be a really big pleasure day, because I felt myself so anxiety-induced, so stressed, panic mode. And so I was like, okay, hold on, we're gonna do it up. And I'm like, what can I do that would feel like slow and steady? I'm like, I'm gonna go brush my teeth. I'm gonna brush my hair. And I was like, okay, hi. I was too anxious to like do a full meditation. Like, I'm like, that feels way out of realm. But I was like, as I like gently comb my hair, as I gently brush my teeth, like, let me connect to my body. And I'm like, oh, hi, what's happening? And they're like, haha, the way through this is pleasure. And I'm like, you son of a gun. And I was like, fuck. And then I was like, okay, fine. And then I was like, but that does not feel fucking accessible. Like, I am very anxiety ridden. Like, now, like, pleasure, are you kidding me? And then I had the insight of like, okay, like, let's not even do like a full, like, Kundalini, you know, full on meditation. Like, no, that was not accessible. So I was like, let's just sit on the bed and like breathe. And I was like, okay, like, you know what? I'm going to see if I get any hits from my higher self. And it was like, shut the fuck up. Like, you are so anxiety ridden right now. Like, you don't need advice. You just need to self-soothe. And I was like, okay, cool. And so there was a part of me that was doing that, and there was a part of me that was like, shouldn't I do pleasure? And my body was like, babe. Oh, man, honey, that's not accessible right now. And I was like, but I'm the pleasure queen. I teach this. And, you know, like, this is how this work ebbs and flows for all of us. Like, we all have quite frankly, a relationship to it where it changes moment to moment. And I was like, God damn. Okay, why? Like, I got curious. And so I went into a quote-unquote meditation. It wasn't really like a full, but it was just like a self-soothing sesh, if you will, for a few minutes, like 8 minutes. And I was like self-soothing. I was touching my hair. I was touching my arms. I was breathing. I'm like, hi. Okay, what's happening? And it was saying, because if you know, I think I've talked about this, like, everything in my life is changing. That's why I really am not like trying to like pitch for my complimentary sessions. I'm like, my life is genuinely changing, like, so much. So, like, I don't know where I will be in 3 months with this business. It keeps evolving, which is like, God bless. We love that. But I was thinking, and I'm like, oh my God, I have everything on my plate right now. Like, nothing's not on the plate. Like, it is Thanksgiving, binge eating, like 10 pounds of food on the plate. Like, it is heavy. So heavy. And so the anxiety, I was like, the pleasure, I should say, was giving me anxiety because I'm like, bitch, like, I can't even hold what's on the plate. You want me to hold another activity? And I was like, cool. Got it. So in that like little 8-minute self-soothing, okay, I felt more calm, and I was like, I have to readjust this plate. Like, what can I take off? What can I readjust? And I was like, okay, I'm looking at this from a way of like something to do, which overwhelms me. And the download, if you will, that I got was, this is not something to do. This is actually going to help you hold all of that quote unquote food on your plate better. So it's not like, oh, I have to then add, a scoop of pleasure. Like, fuck, I have no capacity or no energy to do it. It was like, no, I think you're looking at this in the wrong way. Like, all good, but actually, when you do the pleasure, it makes you feel calmer, it makes you feel safer, and you actually have more strength to, first of all, discern what's on the plate, take some shit off that you don't need, but hold the plate better. And I was like, got it. Like, it's actually not a doing to add, it's a being. Corny, I know, but like, I like that line. I'm like, it's pretty good. So it's a doing versus, I lied. It's a being versus a doing. And that gave me some peace. And I was like, okay. And my body felt a little bit more safe. Because at first it was like, I feel so fucking unsafe. I feel so overwhelmed. Don't you dare, have me do something else. And my body actually was like, oh my God, yes. Like, we actually want that. Because like, we can't hold anything else. And we're actually dying for safety, soothing. So my body was like totally readjusted and was like, yes, if we're coming from this as not an activity or thing to do, but like a way to self-soothe, a way to heal, a way to relax, fuck yeah, sign us up. We need it. And I was like, great, cool. And so I walk on through the rest of my day and I'm like, okay, all right. Like, it doesn't feel threatening, right? Like at first it felt, the pleasure shit felt really threatening to my body that day. And then I was like, okay. Like, it doesn't feel threatening. It doesn't feel overwhelming. It doesn't feel like my nervous system's like gonna burn out, but there is a crunch. There is a little bit of a crunch. And I was like, okay. So like, we're walking through our day and like, I had like 2 minutes and I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? And it was like, okay, like we feel safe to do pleasure. We get it. We get the thing of like being versus doing. But then I hit another resistance. And for me, the resistance, I'm like, what the fuck? Like I've worked on this, but this, it always comes out in different iterations, different seasons in our life, was this like sticky gremlin, creme de la creme, if you will, creme de la creme, all of them. Puff pastries all over the place. Creme de la creme or creme de la creme literally just reminds me of a puff pastry. And I know I've talked about this before, like a pastry with a gremlin coming out of it. I'm like, kind of cute, like spooky season. But like the creme de la creme of crunchies. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And what it was this like old story I found in the back of my brain that I wasn't really conscious of, which was a little bit of like, I even hate to admit it, but like a little bit of a martyrdom, of like, give to your clients, give to everyone else, but like, you're not worthy. Is this story conscious? Like, do I like walk through life with this story? No. But like, there was a creepy fucking crawly in the back there, like a little worm that was like disguised. And I was like, bitch, got you. And so I was like, oh, like I did not recognize that was there, but okay, that's there. And there was like this weird story of like, put your head down. You don't need to take care of yourself. Your only focus is your clients and your work. And hate that story. Then we know the deal. We've talked about this before. That's not fucking helpful to me, to anyone. That's not supportive in the community and in the work. So I was like, ooh, you're a creepy little gremlin. Like, I got you. And so, I self-talked and I'm like, that's not true. You know this. When you take care of yourself, you can take care of your clients better and your community better and your family. You show up to, give myself the whole fucking speech. Okay, like it shook it a little bit, but like this is a creepy age-old story. They're like, okay, like that's nice that you're giving us a speech, Erica, but like, fuck you. And so I was like, what's happening? Like, what is happening? And I was like, okay, this is like the way that I know how I will extract this or get to the core of it is my inner child. And like, I don't know if it's because I did a TikTok last week. Yes, here she is, TikTok, finally, of my inner child, about my inner child. But like something was swirling around the inner child. And I was like, okay. And so the story, like I said, was telling me other things are more important. Not even more important. It's like, you deserve nothing. Like, you have to, that like very fucking age-old story of sainthood. Like, go with me on this. Like, not that I'm a saint. Like, literally not saying that. But like, like the age-old, like religious is dogmatic, I know dogma is a word, but like is dogmatic a word, but I think you know what I'm saying, like put like from a like crunchy ass place, like put your head down, you don't even deserve to bathe, give to everyone else. And I was like, oh, where do we get this? And I think there's a few places where I got it from, some religious upbringing, some things, and I'm like, got you, like, okay. And I was like, okay, how can I like powerfully undo the fucking like of the story, like the full contraction, the full chains on this story. And I was like, I gotta go to Little E, because I think that's the most powerful thing. So this is corny. Of course I cried, like, of course. But like I pulled up old pictures of myself, and I was like, for this little baby fucking angel, like you're telling this baby innocent light ray of a child that she is not even less important, but like, sure, of course, less important. She has to genuinely feel horrible to be a good person. And I was like, that ain't it. Like, that ain't it. So I sat with my inner child, and I've always been telling myself the story. I always teach, right? Like the importance of self-care, the importance of self-love. It is so needed for us, but it is a fucking radical shifter within, you know, the group, within the community, within the consciousness. When we show up for ourselves, it fucking shakes for so many others. And so I knew that. Like, there's so many parts of my brain, my body that know that, but that little worm didn't want to believe it. And like, it didn't want the speech. But when I looked at myself as a little kid, I'm like, that baby boo, like, you're telling me that the baby boo has to be a shell of herself to give? That makes no fucking sense. And I was like, and I'm not going to do that to her. I'm not going to abuse her like that. That is fucked. And so I sat with myself crying, of course, probably eating a snack. No, but I was sitting on my bed crying, you know, because I gotta, feeling the feels. And I was like, I'm not going to sign up for, like, not that I'm consciously doing it, but like, I don't even want to sign up for the worm of myself that's doing it. Like, I don't even want to give it any attention of like, you need to be less than to be a good person. You need to put your head down and be a shell of yourself to be a good person. You need, like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. And of course, like, I say this now, and I'm sure it's going to come up in many different ways, but like for me, looking at my little E was extremely empowering and powerful. And so why I bring that up is because for pleasure, and we've talked about this many times, but like, pleasure's fucking radical for so many reasons. Like I said, I just told you that it got me out of a fucking panic attack. It also broke age-old stories that I took in from childhood, from religious conditioning. Like, excuse you? Like, pleasure was one of the radical change makers in all of this. And so why I'm obsessed with this challenge is not because you feel good. Like, fuck yeah, we all deserve to feel good, especially now. But it also goes into places gently and with love and safety that sometimes we can't get to, or like, why would we even want to, through harshness, through like, let's go in and extract shit. You know, like it's a gentler way to go in, find creepy crawlies and release them. And so I just wanted to talk about this, that like this, I have been doing this goddamn work for many moments. And I hope for as long, and I would say, I hope I have a very long life, and that very long life I know will be filled with always extracting my stuff. You know, I have clients that, and this makes me emotional because it's like the most rewarding clients in the world. I have clients that are 75 years old and they're like, I am still working on this stuff. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you are. Oh, I'm emotional. Like, that's so beautiful. Like, this is a lifelong journey, and we're always going to be extracting. We're always going to be nourishing, growing, expanding. I mean, I hope that's what, you know, that's for me what I always, that's not everyone's intention. People are like, fuck you, I don't want to do that. I do. I would like to. I know it's a little kinky and a little bit like, oh, but I do. I really want to consistently grow and stretch and be curious and have my mind and be blown and have myself, you know, not be like defined by my ego and what I think should happen. Like, I want to consistently be shook in the best ways possible. And so this will always be a thing. that we're uncovering. But I've been doing this shit for a long time, and I'm like, fuck, I thought I got that guy. But there was a different worm. And that's the power of this work. That's the power of finding these worms, is we think pleasure is so fucking dumb. We think it's frivolous. We think it's absurd. But fuck, if you're doing accountability on it, it puts you to the fire of your beliefs. And I found within that, it felt unnecessary, right? Like my core stories that came up in the last week, and I'm sure more will come up, are it's unnecessary, it's more work, and B, I'm not worthy and deserving of that. And I'm like, God damn, haven't I worked on that? I'm like, come on, I've worked on this, but it's this new iteration. It's this new, way it's coming up. And so how cool is that? Like, just because I said I want to focus on pleasure and nourishing myself, these are core stories that I'm now working with. My worthiness, my belonging, my deservingness. That essentially, in the other story, really at the core of it is life should be blood, sweat, and tears. Life should be work, not play. So it's like, okay, honey, we found some core stories that don't really serve you anymore. Okay, cool. What are we going to do with that? And so I just wanted to bring today my experience of what's going on. And again, what I want to do with this. So what am I doing with this is I'm bringing this, for me personally, if I'm going to be transparent, like I'm working these tools, and me as a coach who has coached for many years, has a therapist, has a coach, has a community, which is all extremely, what a blessing, what a privilege to have that accessibility. But I honestly am bringing these crunchy tales of scarcity, blood, sweat, and tears. I'm not worthy. I'm packing up those stories, and I'm bringing it to community, because I could do a lot on my own, and I celebrate. I'm relentless, and I'm like, we're not stopping. So like, I personally am someone that's like, no, like this shit came up, like we're holding it lovingly, like the feet to the fire, like let's get in there. And there's something so healing about community, coaching, these people holding me that I couldn't get to by myself, which again is why I'm obsessed with what I do, because I love this work, me personally. But there's something when you're in coaching, when you're in a container, when you're being held, that we might have not had the accessibility to do on our own. And so that's what I'm going to do. I know later today, I have one of my calls. I have one of my masterminds. And I'm going to bring this up. Like, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to ask for love around it. I'm going to ask for thoughts, exercises, things to move through. Like, I also have, like, obviously being in this work for so long, like, I know what I'm going to do, Erica, on the side, but, like, help me in group. Help me one-on-one with my coach. And again, this is why I'm obsessed with what I do. And this is why everyone needs coaching and therapy, because we all have stuff. Like, we literally all have stuff, and I want to make that normal. So I can, like, go on and on about, like, the power of this challenge. But today I really wanted to talk about the objections, and there's so many fucking objections to pleasure. Like, it's gross, it's disgusting, it's bad. Like, but we each have our, like, we kind of have, like, the societal, cultural stories that, like, a lot of us share. But then I see so often that, like, each of us then holds our own specific story. Like, so many of us hold the societal, the cultural story, like, consciously. We're like, oh, like, this is just my beliefs. But then we get to the core of it, and we each have our own different stories. And so I would love to hear, like, what's coming up for you. And maybe you're like, no, like, I'm so thrilled. I am guns a-blazing into this exercise. And I'm like, great, that makes me so happy. Maybe you're like, I have been avoiding this like of the plague. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, why? And so there's so much more I want to talk about, but really the core of this episode that I want to get to is, and I think I've talked about this before, like, triggers are rude as fuck. Like, they're so rude, and they are an opportunity for healing. They're an opportunity for growth. And instead of making ourselves wrong, shitting on ourselves, my opportunity, my invite to you is, can we get curious about why it's sticky? Can we get curious why we're triggered? Can we get curious why there's crunch? So instead of, oh, I'm wrong, I'm bad, shame, 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 can we just be more curious of why? I wonder why. Like, it's like when kids are like, but why? And you're like, shh. Like, let that kid ask 4 million questions. And be like, but why? But why? But why? And then when we get to a core of it, or close to a core of it, how are we going to hold that? You know, it's not just like, oh, I know because when I was a child, this happened. Okay, anyway. And I see that a lot, and no shade, but I see that a lot in the self-development, you know, culture, whether it be in certain forms of therapy, and I'm obsessed with therapy, so go with me, but like I've seen this working with certain therapists, like I've seen this with coaches, certain people just get to the why, and it's like, oh, because when I was 7, I had a ham sandwich. And it's like, great, I'm so glad you had the ham sandwich. Now what are we going to do with that? Like, how are we going to hold ourselves through it? How are we going to lovingly, supportively get through that moment? Does that make sense? So it's why, boom, got the core of the apple. Now what are we going to do with that apple core? Like, how does it want to be held? How does it want to be seen? How are we going to work with those stories? How are we going to extract it if it's supposed to be extracted? Makes sense? And like, there's a lot we can do it on our own. And like I said, a lot of it more quickly, more smoothly is done in safe community. I want to highlight safe, loving community who knows how to hold you through all of it. Make sense? With that being said, if you haven't started, if you'd like to start, I invite you on this pleasure challenge with me. I'd love to hear about it. I've heard some from what I said, I've heard from some awesome people with what's coming up for them. Some of them are so excited. Some people are like, oh my God, holy shit. Like, I'm seeing magic. Like, I'm literally seeing magic. I'm seeing like a different version of what manifestation is. And some people are like, ooh, I am triggered as fuck. I'm like, cool. Like, it's all worthy. It's all welcome. It's all part of the journey. Like, that's why it's a journey. Like, it is a journey for so many reasons. So much different shit's going to come up, and for a reason. So I'd love for you to join me on this amazing journey, this amazing, fun, juicy challenge, because so much goodness can come from it. First of all, we deserve to feel good. We deserve to have a relationship with self-soothing and self-nourishment, and that we don't have to feel like we're in fucking fight or flight all the time, or really in any of them. Like, we don't have to feel like everything is danger, everything is power, like alarm zone. And I know with anxiety and with the world that we're in, so often it feels like everything's on red alert. Like, because we're so fucking overwhelmed with info, with things that we just, it's sometimes for some people it becomes our just bread and butter, that we feel like we're supposed to be on red, that we feel like we're supposed to go to the worst case scenario. Like, we feel our body is programmed for that. And with the pleasure, it untangles some of that stress, some of that friction, some of that heaviness. And so we deserve to feel good. We deserve to like talk about magic, like fucking HALLOWWN spells Halloween. Like, if we want to talk about magic, this is a way to get to our magic, because we are co-creating. Like, I could talk about this for a moment, but like with pleasure, we become a co-author. We're co-collaborating with the energy, with the situation. Like, that is real-time magic. And if, I hear so many people like, oh, I don't want to be a muggle. Like, I don't want to be in muggle land. It's like, pleasure is, in addition to other tools, of course. But because we're talking about pleasure, like, you want to live a magical life. Like, that sounds corny as fuck, but you actually want to live a magical life? Let's start talking about our relationship to pleasure, because that shit is a healer. That shit's an activator. That shit extracts us. That it's powerful on so many different platforms in so many different ways. And I would love to support you through it. Again, stuff may come up, great stuff, fabulous stuff, amazing stuff. Like, I want to hear it all, and I want to be here to support you in whatever capacity feels good. So you know the deal. I'm on the journey with you. So I'm like, fuck, I'll keep you posted about what else comes up. But if you're like, hey, hey, like, I want ideas. Like, I'm down to do the challenge, but like, what does this mean? Like, what do I do? Can you help? Like, if you need help, if you want to share, if you want to loop in a friend, whatever feels good to you, let me know. I would love to hear, because it's powerful in community, and that's what's been powerful for me this week. And honestly, since I've been doing this work, like, it was cool doing it on my own, but like hearing other people's like, oh, I got this and I did this, it makes me excited. It makes me jazzed to do it. Like, it feels juicy. It feels exciting. So I would fucking love to have you on this challenge. And I know there's a part of us, right? This is another objection, and then I'll be done. But There's an objection so often I see with, like I said, with coaching. Everyone has 4 million objections of why they can't sign up, why they can't do it. And some are very real. Like, I'm not trying to squash, like, actually genuine, real, but a lot of it is from the brain. Like, I can't because. And one story I hear a lot is, I can't, I'll sign up for in January, fresh new year. I have this big life event. I have a wedding. So I'll sign up after that. Like, there's a thing that we have a relationship with time, that we like to keep pushing time and pushing time and pushing time. And yes, for some situations that is valid. And yet, this is corny, but like, our life is not, like, time is fucking precious. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, this is our time. And like, corny, but like, this is not a dress rehearsal. It's not like, okay, I'm going to get myself perfect and I'm going to get myself ready and then I'll do the pleasure challenge. Like, no. And I always say this to my clients, like, we know how to do pleasure when shit's good, right? Like, we know how to have a relationship with pleasure when it's boas and glam and whatever that looks like for you. We know how to do, like, sometimes it feels inaccessible, but we know how to do it. We know what it would look like for us. The biggest question I always ask is, okay, how would you have a relationship with pleasure in the context of all the shit that's happening in your life? And they're like, I know, but I'm getting married, or I know I'm doing this, or I know I'm going through a breakup. And I'm like, I know, like, and we're still gonna, this is not from a place of bypassing, like, we're still gonna deal with all those things. We're gonna still work through all those things, but like, through the context of wild and crazy and busy lives and social media and 4 million energies coming at us at once each day, how are we still gonna stand for our pleasure? So that's the question I want you to ask. In whatever season you're in, maybe you're like, I'm jamming this season. Like, I'm enjoying this season. And maybe this is a hard season for you. Maybe this is like, okay, everything's okay, but like, I'm really busy. So in whatever season you're in, I encourage you to ask yourself, within the context of fucking wild, like crazy, so much happening, so much going on, how can I still be accountable? How can I still stand for pleasure within the context of wild? Does that make sense? Cool. I love you. Also, one more thing, because you know me. That's what I do all the time. Like, wait. I was talking about this recently with a friend, and they were saying something similar. Like, I'm gonna start. I'm so busy at work right now. I'm gonna start after. Probably like, in the next like 7 months. I'm gonna start. And then they're like, the things will be less busy. But I know this person is then planning a wedding. They are thinking about kids. And I'm like, there's always going to be something. But there's this cute part of our brain that wants us to believe everything needs to be perfect. I'll push it off and then. There's always going to be an and then, which is beautiful because we always have different circumstances to play with, be with, shift with. Like, there's always, the future shit's always going to be there. Let's hope, let's pray. That would be, a great thing. Like, there's always going to be something though. Like, there is no time like the fucking present. And so if there's a creepy crawly part of you, which is okay, I have it too. I'm like, part of me is like, should I do it after the move? But there's always going to be something. And so my question is, with safety, with love, with integrity, how can we hold ourselves? How can we fight for seems aggressive, but how can we fight for, stand for our pleasure, even in the context of now? Because in the future, shit's still going to be happening. It might even be more wild. And guess what? Isn't it better to have the tools now? So when craziness comes, we can handle it with a little bit more grace, a little bit more softness, a little bit better, right? Like, I know there's a part of me that's like, well then. It's like, when shit really hits the fucking fan, I want to be able to have these tools like they are my bread and butter, like I know them like the back of my hand. So I know you're like, Erica, F you, but to the best of your ability, it doesn't need to be a 10 all the time. But I invite you in the here and now, within the context of what's going on, if it feels appropriate, of course, within the context of what's happening now, how can I have a relationship to pleasure? In the context of what's happening now, how can I stand for jam with pleasure? I can't wait to hear from you. Thank you for going on this fucking apple cider, pumpkin pie, infused Halloween candy, jam with me. And so I can't wait to talk to you so soon. We have some awesome things coming up. I have some awesome guests. We got to talk about our espresso martini Saturdays and kombucha Sundays. Like, we got some good stuff coming up on the pod. But between now and then, I love you. I hope you have so much pleasure in so many delicious ways. And I can't wait to hold you through it, hear you through it, celebrate you through it, comb through the sticky stuff with you through it. I'm so fucking proud of you. You're the best. And I love you. Thank you, seriously, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.